Hello and welcome to the Joe DeLisi Financial Advisor Podcast with me, Joe DeLisi. And today we are not going to talk about stocks. Not today. We've talked about stocks too many weeks in a row. And I need a break. I need a break from the numbers. I'm sure we'll get back to those crafty little numbers in a couple weeks and look at how the presidential election is maybe shaping up and what that's doing, jobs reports, all that kind of fun stuff. But today we're going to take a step back. We're going to talk about something that comes up from time to time. It's budgeting. And this came to mind. I've been speaking about this topic. The topic and the title of the topic is your 30-second budget. And I've been writing about that. I've been speaking about that for, probably 8 years now. It just kind of came to me one night. And it came up again this week as a new client asked me for help in budgeting. And she said, she and her husband, we need help. Every time we sit down to try to do a budget, we feel like it's the last thing in the world we want to do. We get in arguments, it's stressful, and we just never do it. So I'm going to fix that. And I'm not going to fix it by sitting down with you and writing a budget with your spouse. That's the last thing in the world I want to do. I don't want to get involved in that. I don't want to tell your husband he can't do what he wants to do, or your wife that she can't do what she wants to do. You're grown-ups. That's not what I'm not going to do that. But I do have an answer for this budgeting issue, and it's rather simplistic. So one of the worst financial tasks I think people have is to conquer creating a budget. And you may feel that the financial industry has done everything in its power to screw it up even further for you, and I probably would agree with you because there's software and talk show hosts and envelope systems and courses you pay good money for. They all exist, and yet most of them are really clueless as to how actually best to write a budget. So I'm going to take the mystery out of it. Okay, it can be done in literally 30 seconds. It's simple. It's really simple. It's not easy. In fact, if you're a client of mine, you know how much I love that phrase, simple, not easy. Like, how do you lose weight? Well, it's simple, but it's not easy. How do you build muscle? It's simple. It's not easy. How do you achieve market returns with no speculation or gambling? It's simple. It's not easy. And of course, as you probably can imagine, how do you create a budget? Well, it's simple, but it's not easy. And it's not easy because in order for you to achieve results, you need to execute on the advice. The advice itself often isn't complicated. It's basic math. But if you won't execute on the advice, then you're going to go nowhere. So let's get right to it. This is your 30-second budget. If you got a piece of paper, go ahead and jot this down, okay? Take 100% of your income, fill it in. I don't care what that is. Then you're going to take a line item. You're going to deduct 30% for taxes. I'll talk about that in a second. You're now going to deduct 10% for God or for charity. And then you're going to deduct 20% for savings. And you're going to spend the remaining, in this case, 40% on whatever you want. But you only earn the right to spend the 40% if you do the above. That list you just wrote. And that was the 30-second part. You happy? You're done. That's the simple part. And honestly, this is exactly how my wife and I do it ourselves. It's very, very high level and simple. But now let's talk about the not easy part. First, your income. Now, this one's obvious, or it should be. The budget really works for no matter what you make. 100,000, 50,000, 500,000, a million, it doesn't matter. So we always just start with 100% of whatever it is that you make. And that's all sources of income. The second is taxes. Now, not many people ignore paying taxes. Why? You want to know why? Because it's not an option. You pay your taxes or you go to jail. Look, our government may be very ineffectual in almost everything it does, but one thing it's nailed is the collection of taxes. Because they know that if they give you the option to pay your taxes, then you're going to find something else to spend that money on. And that is not okay with them. So the first thing that comes out of your income is your tax. Maybe it's only 20%. Maybe it's 50%. That's really going to depend on your income and also where you live. It's cheaper to live in Memphis, Tennessee than it is to live in New York City. Not just because of the cost of living, but because one state has income tax and one state doesn't. But really, no matter what you make or where you live, the first thing to go is the tax money. So you just don't have any options here. And so the outcome is that one column always occurs. So now the next column, what is that? Well, that's God. Now, look, I'm going to take heat from people no matter how I frame this up. I don't care if you give money to your church. I'm not your pastor. I'm not your rabbi. I'm also not going to get into a debate over whether you should be giving the money before tax or after tax. The reality is I see that most people aren't coming anywhere near to giving away 10% of their income, no matter how you calculate for it. So, give the 10% before tax, give it after tax, give it to a church, give it to a charity. It doesn't matter. Just give. And I'm not going to, there's not a scientific study I could point you to, but I will tell you my successful clients, they tend to give more than my clients who struggle financially. And I know what you're thinking. In fact, more than some, a lot of my clients are now having their kids, their adult children, listen to this podcast. And if you're one of them, I can hear it. You're saying, well, Joe, that's easy. They got a lot of money to give. And for some, that's true. But for many, they actually do well with money because they gave before they had it to give. I know it may not even make sense. I'm just telling you what I've seen anecdotally. That's just true. Everyone who has an excuse not to give 10% away, or, most people will have that excuse, but those people are usually the people who have an excuse why they can't save either. Giving is good. It's good for the soul. I don't care if you believe in God or the universe. Actually, I do care, but for this point, it doesn't matter. It just does us all well to give some of what we make away because it teaches us to be grateful. And honestly, gratitude is a powerful motivator when it comes to protecting and building a balance sheet. Okay, so we've got our taxes handled. We've got our giving away, our charity, let's say, handled. Now we have to talk about savings. Here, it's 20% minimum. That is your bare minimum. That's your deductible. Look, taxes aren't your money. Well, actually, it is your money, but that's not how the government sees it, and that's why that's so effective. They take it. Those who give to God believe that the 10% they gave away isn't their money either. They think that's actually God's money. But what about savings? Well, guess what? That's not your money either. At least it's not your money as you think of it today at 35, 45, 55 years old. The money you're saving today is your future self's money. It's your 75-year-old you. It's that person's money. The money I've saved up today is because 23-year-old Joe was actually smart enough to save. 23-year-old Joe didn't know 49-year-old Joe. And 49-year-old Joe doesn't know 75-year-old Joe, but my 75-year-old self is 100% reliant on me today at 49. Okay, so if 49-year-old Joe doesn't save appropriately, 75-year-old Joe is going to pay the piper. And I save today so that 75-year-old Joe can live a decent lifestyle. And live that decent lifestyle at a point in time when I may not be able to physically work anymore or provide a paycheck. So you need to begin to save as if it's a requirement, not a suggestion. This is really the biggest challenge I have with people. It's not rate of return. It's not insurance, no insurance. It's not good job, bad job, taxes. No, it's savings and savings rates. Going back a second, if taxes were a suggestion, just think how little you'd pay. You need to operate like the government. You're cringing right now, but just hear me out. You have to operate like the government and stop treating savings as a suggestion. Savings is a requirement. And that leaves us with the rest. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this because we have to spend the rest. After deducting, that list you have above from your income, you're going to be left with anywhere from 40 to 60% of your original income number, highly dependent upon what tax bracket you're in where you live. And that's what you get to spend. And I'm going to suggest you spend every cent, because this is where your lifestyle will be determined. Think about it. In that 40 to 60%, that's your mortgage or your rent, your car, or paying cash for a car, what kind of food you eat, where you eat out, vacations you take, clothes you wear, blah, blah, blah. And that lifestyle you become addicted to is the lifestyle you will demand of your future self when you can no longer generate a check. And I call that lifestyle addiction. Not in a bad way. Look, we all get used to an ever-increasing lifestyle, right? It kind of slowly happens over time. Most people don't go from, the used Honda Civic at 23 to a brand new Mercedes in a single year. In fact, as an aside, if you're a parent right now, like I am, of teenagers, and you're thinking about getting your child a car, please don't buy them a BMW or something like that, because you have to understand they are eventually going to have to buy a car on their own. And it's really difficult to go from Mercedes and BMW down to the used Honda Civic when the teenager was used to the BMW. And that's the same thing that happens to us as adults. Again, we grow into that lifestyle over time, and in doing so, we become addicted to that lifestyle. Now, my industry teaches everyone that they won't need the same lifestyle they have now, and that might be true. But you don't need that lifestyle now either. But you want it. And that desire won't simply like magically leave you at 65 or 75 years old. You'll still have wants and desires that you had built up over the last several decades. So the question is, how in the world, I want you to really think about this for a second. How in the world, mathematically, will you be able to recreate a lifestyle addiction that is 70 or 80% of your income if you've only been saving 5% over the decades? You can't. It's just mathematically not possible. And this is why you hear people on TV and radio suggesting that you need to take more risk and quote unquote get the 10 to 12% rate of return they promise the markets are going to give you. But you don't just get a 10% rate of return. You get what the markets will give. And you get that when they decide to give it. You need to go back and maybe listen to my Sequence of Returns podcast, because when you get the returns is going to have as much of an impact on you as if you get the returns. And a way to insulate yourself from that potential problem is to save appropriately. It's not rate of return, it's rate of savings that's critical. The real way to ensure your lifestyle continues is to never get addicted to a lifestyle that you can't afford. And this is why you need to give and to save roughly 30% of your income between those two categories. If you do that, then the rest is yours. Go ahead and spend it. Get addicted to it, because you will be able to recreate that lifestyle, because it's only 40 or 50% of whatever you make. And you're saving 20% to compound over the years to replace that 40 or 50% lifestyle. Doesn't saving 20% of income to replace 40% sound more doable than saving 5% to replace an 80% lifestyle? Again, that's the simplicity in it. It's so simple, it's basic math. It does not over-rely on markets giving you a specific rate of return. It already adjusts itself year over year for changing taxes and income. But you need to execute on it. And for some of you, it won't be realistic to do this overnight. You know, if you're not giving away any money right now and you're only saving 5 or 10%, I don't expect you to change immediately. In fact, you shouldn't. It could do some damage if you just do that too fast. It will take some baby steps, and it may also take time. I'll give you the tools to get there, but you have to do the work. Simple, not easy. So here's what I want you to do for next steps, okay? If you're not saving, if you're a client of mine specifically, and you're not already saving 20%, and if you're not a client of mine, I mean, just go ahead and use me as a resource anyway. If you're not saving 20% minimum already, then I want you to write out your 30-second budget. It's only going to take that 30 seconds, like we laid out before. Go listen to this again and just write it down. Then go ahead and write a list of excuses as to why you can't do this and read them, because then you're going to laugh at them yourself. And then send them to me. Just go ahead and shoot those over to me in an email. If you're new to me, in the show notes, there's a link to get a hold of us, and we can contact you from there. And then just simply be open and willing to receive the coaching necessary. I will say, my clients are just, I mean, I'm not objective. I think they're the best clients in the world, because they really do let me coach them through investment challenges, you know, down markets, up markets that are scary, election cycles, all that. They're very open to coaching, generally speaking. If you can be open to the necessary coaching on budgeting, you are ready to hit a home run. And then just be patient. You know, your future self is relying on you. So you got to be patient with your today-year-old self. But I'll do the work with you if you'll just take that 30 seconds to sit down. And then again, we don't have to worry about categories for golf or categories for eating out with girlfriends or whatever it is that you guys like to do. Like, we don't have to deal with categories. We just have main components that take 30 seconds to write down. All right, so there it is. That's this week's podcast. We're going to go ahead and see in a couple weeks. I'm sort of waiting to see. Again, we've got jobs reports coming out at the day that I'm recording this. We've got some economic news, the Fed. We've got presidential news. We've got the NFL starting. So maybe that'll impact the markets. Who knows? But we'll be back in a couple weeks. And for now, I am just going to go ahead and read you the wonderful thing that you guys all love to hear, which is the compliance part. Registered Representative, Financial Advisor, Park Avenue Securities, LLC, Pass, OSJ, 5280 Carroll Canyon Road, Suite 300, San Diego, California, 92121, 619-684-6400. Securities products and advisory services offered through PASS, member FINRA SIPC. Financial representative, the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PASS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PASS or Guardian. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC. California Insurance License Number OD34103. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that the individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by PASS, Guardian, or Westpac Wealth, and opinions stated are their own. Guardian, its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. All investments and investment strategies contain risk and may lose value. This material is intended for general use. By providing this content, Park Avenue Securities, LLC, and your financial representative are not undertaking to provide investment advice or make a recommendation for a specific individual or situation, or to otherwise act in a fiduciary capacity. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are unmanaged, and one cannot invest directly in an index. 6985053.1 expires 09/2026.